Does this come on? Okay. Committee members, if you could take your seats, we are ready to begin. The clerk has advised me we do have a quorum. And today our witnesses are all appearing in person in the room, so we don't need to do a sound test. So with that said, I will call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 130 of the Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, Social Development, and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, but today all our witnesses and committee members are appearing in person in the room. I would like to advise those in the room a couple of items. You have the option of choosing to participate in the official language of your choice. Those in the room, translation is available through the headset. I'd suggest you get familiar with it before we begin, because we do sometimes have a few issues with being on the right channel for participating in the language of your choice. If there's an issue with translation services, please raise your hand, and I will suspend while they are being corrected. As well, in the meeting process, please direct all questions and comments through I, the chair, and wait until I recognize you by name before commenting or taking the floor. So, pursuant to standing order as well, please remember those in the room with devices, please make sure alarms or anything are turned off before we begin, because these sound issues can cause issues for the translators. As well, please refrain from tapping the boom on the mic, because again it causes issues for the translators, and we cannot proceed without translation services. So pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Thursday, June the 3rd, 2024, the committee is continuing study on the advancements in home building technologies. So I would like to welcome our witnesses, Jim Fawcett, Executive Director, Canadian Roofing Contractors Association. Mr. Fawcett, welcome. Daniel Pascoe, Chief Commercial Officer, Flexo-Build Incorporated. And Marco Silvera, oh, thank you, Director of Engineering at Printera 3D Construction Printing. Gentlemen, you each have 5 minutes for opening statements, and today we're going with 1 2-hour panel for the full duration of the committee. You each have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. At around 5 minutes, I will ask you to wrap up your comments when you can. So we'll begin with, who are we starting? With Mr. Fawcett for 5 minutes. Mr. Fawcett, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me back at this committee. I was here in the month of June. And thank you again to all committee members for the opportunity. Thank you for being here. This past June, I appeared here during our industry's National Roofing Week. Perhaps someday we can have a National Trades Day during Roofing Week. The Canadian Roofing Contractors Association represents over 400 Canadian industrial, commercial, and institutional roofing contractors, companies, and needed suppliers. Some of our members do both non-residential and residential roofing and building envelope systems. In fact, many may have started in residential and moved over to non-residential. Our member companies vary in size, from as many as 6,000 employees across North America to as few as 12. Most contracting companies would likely be classified as small to medium-sized enterprises. What follows, Mr. Chair, are our comments on some industrial, commercial, and institutional roofing and building envelope advancements that can be used in multi-unit residential construction and perhaps in single-family units someday. New housing investments of any nature create communities. These communities need infrastructure services, be it schools, hospitals, recreational complexes, and shopping facilities. CRCA members will be called upon to meet the demand. There is a related challenge. In the roofing and building envelope industry, there is an acute need for people in all facets of the business. We need skilled and unskilled labor. We need superintendents, project managers, estimators, engineers, and so on. This is why the industry has turned to technological advancements as one way forward. No matter the technology, innovation, or other enhancement, we still need people to build and manage the construction of the buildings. Perhaps two of the more known ways used in advancement in industrial, commercial, institution roofing and building envelope construction are modular construction and insulation. Each has a residential application. Often used interchangeably, prefabricated construction and modular construction are different. Prefabricated construction involves the creation of building components in a controlled environment before they are transported for assembly. Modular construction, a subset of prefabrication, consists of creating complete modules or units in a factory setting. These modules can include walls, floors, ceilings, and integrated systems forming self-contained units. The ICI construction modular systems use integrated components that include pre-assembled units that integrate insulation, membranes, and structural elements. This has the potential to enhance overall performance and ease of installation. Use of modular systems has the potential to speed up construction. Given it is in a controlled environment, there is likely to be quality-controlled improvements. There are many examples, but I'll only look at one because of time commitments. The Hive in Vancouver, British Columbia, a mixed-use development featuring modular construction for both residential and commercial spaces with an emphasis on sustainable building practices. This project including roofing systems that enhance energy efficiency and the design facilitated rapid construction. It is constructed with advanced mass timber systems using prefabricated cross-laminated timber, CLT in the industry, and panel-glued laminated timber columns, bracing, and beams. When it comes to insulation systems, there is something called continuous insulation systems. These are wall assemblies where insulation is applied continuously across all structural elements of a building's exterior without thermal bridging. It is not the time for a class in thermal bridging. However, I will say that thermal bridging refers to the transfer of heat through conductive materials, with insulated areas leading to energy loss in the winter and heat gain in the summer. One application for continuous use in systems in commercial residential is exterior foam board. These attach directly to the exterior of the sheathing or framing. Such systems provide higher energy efficiency ratings. Given the limited time, I will say there are many examples of technological advancement in construction that will lead to greater efficiencies and faster outcomes. However, technology alone will not resolve the current housing supply issue, and not all technological advancements are used on a mass scale to make a significant impact. I said this in June, and I say it often. We should all encourage our children or grandchildren, or anyone else for that matter, to pursue a career in a trade. We are all touched in some way by the current housing situation in Canada. The CRCA does not see a one-size-fits-all solution going forward. The housing crisis will not be resolved overnight. It's going to take time. Our members want to see governments and industry work together to build communities Canadians want to live and thrive in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Fawcett, you're right on time. We'll now go to Mr. Pascoe for 5 minutes, please.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Pascoe. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer and co-founder of FlexiBuild Incorporated, a Canadian company based in the Niagara region of Ontario. In response to the current housing crisis in Canada, FlexiBuild has developed a practical long-term solution for neighbourhood housing, densification and new home developments. We saw an opportunity to create a solution where multi-generational families could remain close by while maintaining their independence and dignity. Many elderly couples are interested in moving into their own ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, sometimes referred to as a garden suite or a laneway house, while their younger family members reside in a main home. It's a smart use of home equity and a way to revitalise neighbourhoods which have had space for these dwellings. There is also an income opportunity for homeowners. Those with underutilised large backyards can rent their ADUs on a long-term basis, providing much-needed housing for others. This not only helps address the housing shortage, but allows homeowners to benefit financially from their existing property. At FlexiBuild, we use a prefabricated structural steel insulated panel system to assemble complete homes. This includes a floor, walls and roof, with home sizes ranging from 450 square feet to 1,300 square feet as standard models. These homes can be expanded or contracted in both directions to fit specific property lines, giving homeowners total flexibility. Our product is 100% Canadian designed and manufactured, that we contribute directly to our economy and maintain the highest standards of quality. FlexiBuild homes are suitable for installation in all provinces and territories across Canada, ensuring safety and durability in all environments. Leveraging the automotive industry standard of Design for Manufacture and Assembly, DFMA, allows us to streamline the process and deliver homes that are not only fast to build, scheduled for exact on-time delivery, but ensures consistency in the final product. Our homes feature spacious interiors with ceilings up to 12 feet, creating a sense of openness and enhancing the overall feeling of space. Despite a smaller footprint, FlexiBuild homes feel airy and spacious. The FlexiBuild system is delivered flat-packed on a flatbed truck to the client's site, which is just one of the unique aspects of FlexiBuild. Importantly, the installation of the home does not require road closures, and we do not impede traffic in the local area. There is no need for heavy, large cranes to lift structures. Standard hand-operated tools are the only tools required on site. A local general contractor, part of our Flexo Connect program, handles the installation of the home, including essential services such as plumbing and electrical work. In just 4 to 5 days, the exterior of the home is complete, including windows and doors, with minimal disruption to the neighbourhood. There is no heavy equipment noise, making the process seamless and neighbour-friendly. Every single piece of the home can be carried through a garden gate by 2 people, illustrating the ease of installation. The standard foundation option of helical screw piles allows the homes to be built above ground and installed on sloped properties, without concern for the ground type. Furthermore, due to the steel exterior of the home, our homes are critter-proof, adding an extra layer of durability. The Flexo Connect member would finish the interior of the home, making it move-in ready within about 4 to 6 weeks. The entire process, delivery, installation and interior finishing, takes less than 2 months. While the FlexiBuild process is highly efficient, many of our clients still face challenges, especially with building permit applications. Many homeowners find the process confusing and indeed overwhelming, as building regulations can vary significantly between municipalities. Each area has its own specific sets of rules and processes regarding setbacks, building height, lot coverage, and the comparative size of the ADU compared to the main dwelling. New property developers also encounter significant obstacles when looking to place multiple homes in larger communities. Changing or adjusting local zoning and obtaining approvals for larger property developments can be a very complex and costly process, making it challenging to expand these much-needed housing solutions. FlexiBuild has a solution and a product to help address Canada's housing crisis, with rapid, efficient and family-centred solutions. With government support and regulatory reform, we can provide faster housing for thousands of families, while supporting local tradespeople and revitalising neighbourhoods across Canada. Thank you for your time. My name is Daniel Pascoe. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Pasco. We will now go to Mr. Silveira. Silveira, for 5 minutes, please.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today to speak about the potential of additive construction, commonly known as 3D printing, and its role as a powerful tool to help address Canada's housing challenges. My name is Marco Silveira. I serve as a Director of Engineering at Printera 3DCP. In addition to my role at Printera, I chair the ASTM Work Item 84415 Committee, which deals with standard practice for evaluation of structural printed elements. And I also contribute to the ASTM F42 ISO JD80, focused on development of standards practice for additive construction in general. I'm also part of some committees in the US, such as ICC and the NIST. However, it's worth mentioning that Canada has yet to establish any standard committees for additive construction. At Printera 3DCP, we provide additive construction services, and we are proud to be part of a larger group of construction companies dedicated to innovation in this space. Additive construction techniques are demonstrated their value globally by enabling faster construction of high-quality, cost-effective homes. In countries like the United States, Germany, and the Netherlands, 3D printing is already producing entire structural components from foundation walls to full housing units. These printed structures are not only faster to produce, but also provide unique benefits, such as enhanced material efficiency, optimized design integration, and reduced environmental impact, making homes more sustainable in the long term. Research conducted in Canada, including my own work as a research fellow at the University of Windsor, published at the Canadian Journal of Civil Engineering under the title, Structural Performance of Large-Scale 3D Printed Walls Subjected to Axial Compression Load, has demonstrated the potential of additive construction in producing robust structural components. These findings also suggest that additive construction can meet and exceed both Canadian and American masonry standards, further validating its role in addressing our housing needs. This research, by the way, was part of the Leamington project that Fiona Coughlin, the CEO of Habitat for Humanity in Windsor, mentioned to you all a couple of weeks ago. However, despite these advancements, Canada still faces several roadblocks that prevent us from fully leveraging additive construction technologies. Current regulations are not designed to accommodate innovation, including additive construction, which limits our ability to apply this technology in commercial and residential projects. The above-mentioned paper suggests that 3D printed walls can be designed to meet masonry standards. However, interpretations differ across municipalities, resulting in inconsistencies. Developing new standards and guidelines for 3D printing construction is crucial, but the process could take 7 to 10 years, far too slow to meet society's urgent needs. Immediate solutions are required to make this technology impactful and address today's challenge effectively. A comprehensive, unified research initiative that systematically addresses critical knowledge gaps in additive construction remains absent. Current research efforts are often disconnected and not aligned with industry needs, lacking focus on practical applications that could drive the development of the industry standards and building codes. A coordinated research strategy guided by these crucial gaps is necessary to ensure that findings directly support the creation of robust standards, design guidelines, and building codes. To enable the widespread adoption of 3D printing in Canada's construction sector, it is crucial to align research, industry expertise, and the development of standards and building codes. The accelerated retirement of skilled workers and the lack of new talent entering the trades have led to a growing gap in available workforce. The shift toward automation in construction requires workers skilled in robotics, new materials, and innovative technologies. While traditional workers are experiencing conventional methods, they need specialized training to adapt to additive construction. Investing in targeted education and training will ensure our workforce can support this technology shift. In conclusion, 3D printing offers a transformative solution to Canada's housing crisis by reducing costs, enhancing sustainability, and speeding up construction timelines. However, to fully realize this potential, we must address several key challenges. Advancing targeted research to fill gaps identified by industry players, rapidly updating building codes and standards to accommodate innovation, and investing in specialized workforce training. With these important elements in place, additive construction can reshape the housing sector and significantly contribute to meeting the growing demand for affordable housing in Canada. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for that. We now have ample time for an in-depth discussion on this very important subject. We'll begin with Mr. Aitchison for 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses who are all here. That's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences too. It's really interesting stuff. I'd actually like to start with Mr. Pascoe, if I could. The concept of home kits, like modular construction, factory-built homes, it's not a new thing in Canada. It's been done in the past. I mean, I used to be able to order your home out of the Sears catalog, but I'm wondering if you can speak to some of the reasons why the pre-built or the catalog home or that whole industry, why that's gotten so much smaller.
Well, I think with prefabricated homes as a whole, there were many restrictions with regards to that, as in, you know, they need to be made in a factory for one. There's a huge investment required for that process. They're made in traditional methods as well, and we speak today about, you know, robotic 3D printed materials, and, you know, you've got traditional wood construction and metal construction and so on. But it still requires a significant investment and a large factory footprint to create these homes. And not forgetting, of course, they need to be transported to the customer's site or the client's site, which, as you can know, as you drive down the 401, seeing one of these massive homes drive down the 401, it has its own issues in itself. Why, if that's one of the reasons for the decline in that, I do not know. However, the whole purpose of, in my case, FlexiBuild, is that because the whole kit is flat packed, literally on a flatbed trailer, that trailer can get to virtually anywhere. And it requires a simple forklift to unload the panels on site, which includes the panels, the frame, and everything you need to assemble that home, including the fasteners themselves. So that's why we went down that route. It doesn't require too much investment in the sense of building a factory. And the practicalities of getting those homes in the backyard of a home in an established neighborhood is very, very practical indeed.
Can you speak a little bit about the approvals process? Like, you can scale up a factory to build a lot of product pretty fast, but you have to have a place for it to go. And of course, getting those sites for the building to go is a municipal approvals process. How's that going for you?
Well, the building permit process, it is the biggest roadblock of all. I mean, even if you have clients, and when I talk about clients, predominantly I'm talking about private homeowners, which have equity in their home, which they're willing to borrow against. Getting that building permit process underway is an extremely overwhelming and daunting task. I mean, you know, we all assume just apply for a building permit, but every single municipality has a different process. And so you may have a brother-in-law or something which had a great time in Milton, Ontario, but just down the road in Burlington, it's a completely different process just to start the actual permit process itself. You've also got the money involved in doing so. That's potentially restrictive because you are wondering whether it will get approved. Every single municipality is different, as I explained briefly, with regards to the footprint of the home, in regards to the actual property itself, or in comparison to the actual main dwelling unit. The setbacks from a fence, you may have in one municipality a 3-foot setback, which means that the house can start from 3 foot from the property line, whereas another one could have 12 foot. And that 12 foot now behind a home is potentially a complete waste of space, as you can imagine, unless you've got a kayak to put behind there.
And would you say that all of those, aside from, I mean, there's different rules about setbacks and those kinds of things, but different interpretations of building code, delays in terms of getting approvals, do all of those things add to the ultimate cost of the unit?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, time is money.
Time is money.
And time is enthusiasm. Yeah. You know, you've got a person in January wants to build in spring, spring's come and gone.
Yeah.
And not forgetting, I mean, because every single municipality is different in its process and its requirements for meeting certain local bylaws, we need to standardize across provinces, across the country, the basic understanding of what is included. But not only that, we need to make sure we have enough staff in the municipality levels to handle the building permits, the volume of. And there should be enough staff on staff to, in comparison to the population or the in expected ADU applications in my case.
But I got to think your product would reduce the need for municipal staff for inspections. You're governed by CSA standards as opposed to local
In actual
building
fact, we're not a
inspectors.
CSA standard product because we meet what I call a Part 4 of the building code. It's an engineered stamped drawing, in fact. A CSA would be more applicable to a prefabricated home built in a factory.
Okay.
So the simplicity of our business model is sometimes not recognized at the building permit level because every single municipality has a different interpretation of the building code, be it the provincial one or the federal one.
Okay.
And so having the regulatory reform, as I mentioned, so there's a standard set of basic rules for them to adhere to. But not only that, having time limits put on them as well. So if a building permit is applied for, how long does the municipality have?
Give them hard and fast deadlines to make a decision.
Absolutely. I mean, there's certain municipalities I can speak of where there's a 10-day turnaround for any application question. So, you know, the municipality would ask the client this question. When the client answers that, normally immediately if they have the answer to hand, they've got up to 10 days to answer that response. And they take that 10 days. Why is that? I mean, where is the digitization of building permit processes across provinces, municipalities, federal and everything else? It's so antiquated.
Okay, I'm out of time. I have lots more questions for Elliot, but we'll come back to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. Mr. Coteau for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to our guest here today. Thank you for being here. This has been an interesting study for us. We've listened to many different Canadian entrepreneurs and companies, researchers about the different technology that they're adapting, and you know, it's been quite fascinating. So I have a couple of questions. I'll start with Mr. Severa. What made you decide to invest your time into 3D printing? Like, why that? There's so many different technologies out there. What makes that different for you? When you're an academic, you decided you're going to go into structural printing. Why that technology?
That's a good question. So, yeah, particularly for me, I got my training in structural engineering. So when I was doing my PhD, I realized that even though we have some technology available like artificial intelligence, design optimization, generative design, we have all those tools available to design our structures. But sometimes as designers, we are not allowed to use those because the building process that we have, the regular building process, is going to limit you to use to enhance the potential of those optimized structures, right? Because they're going to have shapes that are much more like natural, like a tree, like natural structures, right? Like a tree, like a structure that came from the nature, right? And it's going to be very hard for you to produce that, to fabricate, to build those structures using regular systems, regular construction process, right? And then when I saw additive construction, 3D printing, I saw an opportunity to enhance those that potential from the artificial intelligence side of things.
And is there at the end of the day, when you take typical construction with concrete and other materials and 3D printing, do you find that there's actually, of course, there's probably an efficiency piece in timing, but cost-wise, is there a difference?
Yes, there is a difference. So right now, depending on the size of the project, depending if you're doing one home or if you're building multiple homes, it's going to vary, right? But like a few numbers, for example, for Leamington project, for example, that I was part of that during my period at the University of Windsor. So for that project in particular, we saved time, and it was cheaper than the same building, exactly the same building built right beside that one, right? So we had savings on that, but keep in mind that we were still using the current regulation, the current building codes, the current design guidelines, meaning that we were not still able to use to use optimization process and to use, for example, artificial intelligence in that application, right? So what we foresee in the future is once we get the specific standards and guidelines developed for this technology, and we know very well as a community, we know very well the behavior of those components, we're going to enhance even more that reduction potential, right? So that connects with the environmental impact, right? By using less material, you're going to, of course, use less resource. And
Thank you very much, Mr. Pasco. Thank you for being here. And, did you start the company? Are you the founder as well?
I'm one of the founders, yes.
Okay, so what got you to this point where you decided one day you're going to, switch gears and go into this direction? What was the turning point for you?
Well, we discussed this amongst friends, of course. My co-founders are my friends. And we were looking at how can we address this housing crisis. I don't mean from a business perspective, but just from an emotional aspect. Our largest inquiry base is from elderly people, which live in a very valuable home in today's world. I mean, it used to be $100,000, and now it's worth 1.5 million or whatever it is. They're sitting on this equity, and there's many methods to spend that equity or pass it down to your children. But if they have a large enough backyard, they could build an ADU, in our case, in the backyard. They can move in there, and the younger family with grandchildren and so on can move into the main house. Or if they don't, excuse me?
The good parents.
The good, well, indeed. I mean, at some point, they're going to get the money. So alternatively, of course, if they don't have a large enough backyard, they could sell their property, and then their son, daughter, whatever it may be able to put the ADU in their backyard. So just that, that emotional side of it, for me personally, I found very, very interesting. And the speed in which we can actually develop empty ground to a finished building is very impressive. I'm from a engineering manufacturing background, not a construction industry, I stress. And so I found the whole concept of that is the product, that is the result, done. There's no variables there.
I noticed on the website there was one cost for the actual kit and one cost for the construction. Is that correct?
Correct.
So do sometimes people come in and say, we just want the kit, we're going to build it ourselves, or is it always a package that comes together? How does that work?
Well, FlexiBuild itself supplies just the kit itself. As you said on the website, you've got the two prices there.
Right.
There's nothing worse than finding prices on a website, or not finding prices on a website, and then having a daunting task of picking up the phone in this day and age. So we wanted to make it as transparent as possible. The second number there is an estimate, a very good estimate, of how much it would cost to employ a general contractor to install and finish the home in its entirety. No one cares how much the home kit is because they're not construction people.
Right.
So to make that as transparent as possible. When you go to buy a car, it starts off at $45,000, ends up at $70,000. No. Ours starts and finishes at that number, and that's the whole point behind it.
Thank you. Thank you.
M. Shabbat pour 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you sincerely to all our witnesses from the beginning of this study. What I've observed, and I think what we've all observed, is the capacity of your activity sector to work in innovation. If we think of the automotive sector, we'll see a lot of innovation in that sector, for instance, but now we're seeing innovation in the construction sector, be it residential or commercial or industrial. I invited as a witness for this study representatives from the Quebec FTQ construction sector in Quebec. We have a large building sector. 3 elements I found very pertinent in their comments was we have to act on skills. You yourselves talked about qualifications. Also, workplace health and safety. Workers with your new models, be it robots automation. There are issues there for health and safety. And then there's a paradigm shift, or at least a change of culture in the industry. So I have a question, and maybe all three of you could comment. For the workers, because it is the workers who are going to ultimately contribute to the construction and the innovation in part. What are the main challenges for your companies in regard to workers? Thank you.
Yeah, this is a good question. So especially when you're starting to use automation in construction, 3D printer is an automation system, right? So it's a system that can deploy concrete or other material, but most of the time we are working with concrete. It can deploy concrete based on your 3D model, and of course the operation, the close operation, it doesn't require too much of human interaction when you're doing the printing itself. So meaning that your workers, they're going to be far away from the concrete deployment itself when you're like printing, right? The deployment of the concrete, right? So I don't have any official data to show here, any research data, but it is expected to improve the safety of the workers by using automation, as you're keeping them a little more busy with the automation side of things, the programming the machines and operating the machines far away from the deployment of the material itself.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the question. Merci. When it comes to safety, there's nothing more important in non-residential construction than the safety of the workers. Period. End of story. Safety adds to the bottom line. Safety is the culture of any organization. It's exceptionally important. When it comes to the technologies and how it impacts the workers going forward, our members see technology as a tool to enhance the efficiencies of not just the construction process, but also the training of the people. We are constantly looking at our training. As we know, Red Seal in Canada is the recognized training trade across Canada. Roofing is a Red Seal trade. We have 2 associations in Canada that train at the Red Seal level, but in British Columbia and in New Brunswick, for example. And British Columbia is outstanding. They do an exceptional job. The irony is, notwithstanding the technology that we're seeing advance and push industry from our manufacturers and others, the training you can get in British Columbia to be basically we'd call it tinsmith back in the day still exists. There is still necessary work to be done on a roof or a wall that will require a human to do something. Are we at a place in time where maybe there will be more robotics? There's a possibility. The answer is yes. There's some work being done by a professor at the University of British Columbia that actually is of the opinion that robots could go on a construction site right now. I don't know about that. But having said that, we don't see an outright replacement of workers with new technologies. We do see, as my colleague to my right mentioned, that there will be need for different types of training of the people, absolutely. But at the end of the day, you're still going to need someone like my son, who's a superintendent with a roofing company, to coordinate the people, to do the work in advance that's required. What we don't see when you look at a job site is you don't see the consultants, the engineers, you don't see the superintendents, you don't see the estimating that goes on prior to the job even getting started. And there's a lot of professionals that do a lot of work. And yeah, they're using technology. They use artificial intelligence to help them do their job. But at the end of the day, the chief estimator, he or she still has to take responsibility for that work. So technology will make work more efficient, but an outright replacement of people, we don't see that. Go on.
5 seconds left. My time's up.
Madame,
Thank you, Madame Chabot.
6 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've certainly got some questions for the witness. But before I do, I just wanted to recognize, Mr. Chair, that We did experience an atmospheric river in BC this past weekend, and in my community of Coquitlam, a dearly beloved elementary school teacher died. Her home was swept away in the atmospheric river. Her name was Sonia McIntyre, and I just want to recognize that today as we talk about housing and the need for safe, affordable, resilient housing. So I wanted to share with the panelists that, you know, as a parliamentary committee and parliamentarians, we don't do operations, we do legislation and regulations. And I'm really interested in how the federal government can keep current and assist in getting affordable, accessible, climate resilient housing built. And I'm thinking right now specifically about remote and rural Indigenous communities. We have a member, NDP member from Nunavut, that talks a lot about the inability to get housing built quickly. And so I'm really interested in your knowledge, your skills, your experience around how we can access these remote communities and get them housing quickly. That's going to be climate resilient. So I'm going to ask everyone, maybe I'll start with Witness Pascoe, then I'll go to Facet, and then Sylvière. Just, you know, you go to way more conferences than we do. You talk to way more people. I'm interested as legislators what we need to know.
Well, speaking of, from my experience, obviously FlexiBuild's experience, I mean, building in a rural community for us is quite straightforward because getting the product there is easy in the sense that, like I said before, it's a flat-packed, panelized product on a flatbed truck, so it can get to site. Having skilled labor on site, obviously, is required. That being said, and Jim mentioned the Red Seal programs. I mean, these need to be encouraged across our country for the construction industry because you do need to have a good skill base to assemble our homes on site. But actually getting the products to rural sites, First Nation sites in the outer reaches of Canada is not problematic for us. But it does require a skill base on site there to actually assemble our homes.
And so maybe some investment in training and
absolutely. I mean, that should be Canada-wide.
Yeah, and the ability to move province to territory to province. All right, Witness Facet.
It's a challenge because, you know, as the late Norman Schwarzkopf said, logistics win the war. The logistics of remote communities presents a problem in terms of getting prefabricated materials up there. And you've got to do an awful lot of planning in advance. Not that it cannot be done. It can be done. But it's in terms of logistics. And then you look at, depending what they want, if they want multi-unit facilities to be built, you need to prefabricate as much as you can off-site and then bring it up there. And then, as my colleague to my left said, having the right people on site to actually do the assembly of the units. So logistics become a challenge. People that will work in the remote sites, having had a son who's worked remotely for a large multinational corporation, is difficult. There are younger people in construction who don't want to do it, is a simple truth. My son did it, and he loved it, and he got paid for it. He got paid handsomely for it. At a young guy. I tease him a little bit about making too much money at 23. But it's the truth. So you have a challenge there. So things that governments can do, you know, perhaps look at the tax structure. Are there incentives that governments can offer people to work in more remote locations? Are there incentives that they can offer companies to do work there? Because it does present its own challenges to work in the north. It's not about who's living on the land or who has it. That's the issue at all. It's not there. It's more about the logistics and getting people to be there and want to be there because there's a lot of work out there to be done all across Canada, no matter where you are. It's just finding the time, giving the business and the people the right incentives to say, hey, we need you in this community to build X, Y, Z.
Interesting. Good. Marcos.
Thanks for the question. So, yeah, so it's good to make it clear that our the additive construction has a lot of applications. So the application that I have the most experience with is it's on-site printing, right? So meaning that you're going to be bringing your printer to the site to use local material, to use as much as you can from the local community and to deliver your product, right? So we are shipping a printer, which is a considerably big equipment, but not as large as some of the equipment. So it fits inside a 20-footer CCAM, so it's not a big challenge to move this component to remote locations. I also had the chance to work in a specific project that was accomplished in Alberta for First Nation community, Siksika community. So in that specifically project was like a remote area. It was more than an hour outside Calgary. And we were pretty successful on the accomplishment of that project because we were using local material, meaning that we were using local sand, local gravel, and trying as much as we can to use Portland cement locally as well. That's another thing that we are working to reduce the use of Portland cement to improve the efficiency, the environmental efficiency of the technology. But yeah, I can say that this on-site additive construction, it is suitable for remote areas in terms of what we can do to improve even further the application of this technology for this specific problem that we have. Is of course the things that I already mentioned throughout my speak here. Pretty much it's a new technology, it's still new for the country. We still need to work in standards, updating building codes, and that is also that also brings the attention to research because those standards. Sorry.
Well, Mr. Silveira, you can continue on with that. I'm sure one another member question. We'll now go to Mr. Seaback. Mr. Seaback, is that who I have here?
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah.
Did I get it wrong?
No, you're right. Sorry.
Okay. Mr. Seaback for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was just too captivated. So all of you have talked about actually skilled trades, which is something I just want to delve into a little bit because it will, of course, affect building innovation. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Facette, my family started in the roofing business. My grandfather started a company, Seaback and Sons Roofing, in Toronto in 1935. So understand the importance of getting work like that done. So we have a trades deficit. You've all talked about it. I know that in my travel across the country. And the Red Seal program is fantastic. One of the things that the government's actually done is they've cut the apprentice completion grant. So if you don't know that, the apprentice completion grant will give you $1,000 up to $2,000 for every level you complete on your red seal as you go through it. So level 1, you can get $1,000. Next, you can get another $1,000. Great incentive for keeping people in skilled trades and drawing people into skilled trades. Do you think this cut is going to help recruit people into the trades or help with the trades deficit, or is this going to be a problem? Any one of you that want to answer that?
I'll go first, Mr. Chair. Anything that can be done to encourage people into a trade is welcome. Cutting something could have the opposite effect. And that said, it's not a simple equation. I think if we go back in time, the 1950s, when we had a large number of people come from Europe after post-World War II, my in-laws were part of that. They had a trade, not construction related. Society valued trades, bigger picture. I question whether that value is there today in society. And that's a bigger problem. And so when I said earlier about encouraging your children, your grandchildren, your friends to go into construction, I said that to the Minister of Immigration in a meeting last October last year. I mean it. You know, the old expression, charity begins at home, right? So that's a small way to encourage your own family to at least consider it. As I mentioned earlier, there are levers that the federal government has to encourage people to look at a trade in construction, the tax system being one of them, and then encouraging provinces and municipalities to, get away some of the regulations that Daniel talked about a little bit earlier. So, yes, I think cutting any kind of incentive could diminish the ability of people to pursue a trade, but it's really important that everybody really value their role in society. It's changing in certain pockets, but it's not changing enough. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
well, my family's gone full circle. So my grandfather was a carpenter. My dad became a lawyer. I became a lawyer. My son is now a carpenter's apprentice. So we've gone full circle. So we're certainly trying to do our part. Innovation's great, but input costs are also a problem. We have an affordability problem with respect to homes and building homes. You'd agree with, I think everyone would agree with me on that. And input costs have a big factor on that. Like I did just my own little investigation. Canada produces 13 million tons of cement. Cement is obviously used in construction. It's 0.6 tons of CO2 for every ton of cement that's emitted. At $65 per ton, the carbon tax, that works out to be $500 million that's added to the cost of cement. Would you agree with me that making inputs in the construction industry more expensive increases the affordability challenge that Canadians have on buying homes? Anyone?
Well, obviously, any increased tax or any other levy that may be put on construction materials or labour is not helpful. That's clearly obvious. Now, the carbon tax is a whole new subject, which certainly I'm not an expert on. But if you say to me, because of this, that's now more expensive, that's now going to get passed down to the homeowner, which now has to borrow more money at maybe a higher interest rate than they used to, and so on and so forth, it's obviously not going to be helpful in increasing our houses on the ground program. You mentioned the removal of the $1,000 incentive for an apprentice. I would look at this from a different perspective, actually. That $1,000 obviously is a nice gift to give to an apprentice. Would that be enough to entice him to go into the trades rather than into IT? I probably wouldn't have thought so. What you may want to consider, and again, this is a much bigger subject to discuss, is where is the incentive to the employer, the trades guy, the existing tradesperson, the existing Red Seal tradesperson? What is his incentive? He's offering his time to train up a young man or woman to become an apprentice. Where's his incentive? I mean, truly, where is his incentive? We have many, many tradespeople retiring and no one coming up from behind. Where is his incentive to bring on new apprentices? He's being paid minimum wage now. Next year is $25, whatever it might be. But that apprentice may leave at any given time. He's got a 5-year apprenticeship, 9,000 hours, whatever it might be. But in year 3, he may go. That's a big problem.
Thank you, Mr. Seebeck. We'll now move to Mr. Van Bynen for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My first question will go to Mr. Silveria. Had the opportunity to visit your site at York University and quite impressed with the progress that you're making. You mentioned a project that you had in Leamington. Can you tell me more about that project? Was it a group of single-family dwellings? Was it a multiple dwelling unit? Or?
Yeah, so it's important to mention that my involvement in that project was throughout my employment with the university when I was a research assistant, research associate there. So it has nothing to do with my current employment right now, right? Mm-hmm. Anyways, so that building was it was a one-story building for tiny units, 4 tiny units, and that was used. That building is being used for an institution called The Bridge. So they deal with the youth in need in Leamington, Ontario. So the use of it's a residential building, but the use of this building is for that institution right now.
Doing multiple stories with that technique?
I had involvement in multiple stories projects as well. So the maximum that we accomplished here in Canada was in Kingston, Ontario. It was a 3-story one. So we printed the basement, the main floor, and part of the second floor. So the technology right now, there's a few printers available, and we have 2 different printers available. One of them is able to print up to 3 stories without needing to move the printer up, right? So with just one positioning, you can print 3 stories. The other printer is a little bit more flexible, and we can print multiple stories by moving the printer up, which is a very light printer. It's 2,500 kilograms. So with a small crane, you can bring the printer to the next floor.
Okay. You'd mentioned earlier to realize the full potential of this and I think other innovation technology, we need to address some key issues: advanced targeted research, and to fill gaps that are identified by industry players, and rapidly updating building codes. And we keep hearing this over and over and over again, that time is money, you've said. There's delays, takes up to 7 years. How do we crack that logjam?
So if you think about like one of the good things of the technology is that you can build faster, right? So, but when you are applying for the building permits, for example, it's going to be a longer process because the current building code, like for example, Ontario building code, it doesn't have any specific guidelines for innovative solutions, right? So if you fall under, for example, alternative solutions chapter, right? So if you had the chance to look over that chapter, you're going to see it's a one-pager chapter that gives the ability of the building official to require whatever they want to have from you in order to approve that project, right? So meaning that in most of the cases, they're going to be requiring tests and like fire tests, fire rating tests, some structural testing, some thermal testing. That is like just the tests on day on, it's going to take like more than a year or two for you to get those testing done, right? And across municipality, this is going to change because if you go to a different building official, they are going to require a different. They can require a different thing, right? So I think number one would be having the building code allowing for innovation that has been already proved through research, right? So if you have research data that can back up your claims, you potentially don't need to redo all those testing, right? And second thing would be to develop the standards specifically for additive construction. Technology has shown to be a good technology to produce faster and more efficient structural components.
I only have one more minute, but I'd like to ask one question of all three. Can you give me an example of a municipality that has expedited an efficient process for the approval of buildings that we might invite here to give us examples of breaking the log jam of having the building code and development approvals?
Well,
delays?
I
Each
could
one
actually,
of you.
yeah, I could actually speak to that. In fact, our show home for FlexiBuild is in Pelham, Ontario, just south of St. Catharines. And in actual fact, that building permit, I believe, was approved in less than 8 days.
Okay.
City of Vancouver.
City of Vancouver?
Leamington, Ontario.
Leamington? Okay. Do I still have some time?
Go on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Van Buyden. Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes et 30.
2 minutes and 30 seconds, Ms. Chabot. Well, I'll let Mr. Pascoe respond to the question I'd asked everyone, because workers have told us that all innovation processes must take into account workers because they are part of the solution upstream. And it was explained to me that you can have the best plans in the world, but if the workers have not been involved in the process, so how do you see the workers' place in these innovative processes? Thank you.
Yeah, you were mentioning before the safety on site aspect, I believe. Obviously, workers' safety is of paramount importance to everyone in the construction industry. I mean, workers play a tremendous role. We have automation in factories. We've had automation in factories for some years now. And in the construction industry, any prefabricated product, be it the whole house itself or elements of that house, in a factory environment, safety procedures are a lot easier to control because you have machine guarding, automation, and so on and so forth. You have a known entity being done. Whereas on a construction site, as you know, there's many variables that could be caused by simple things such as the weather. In our particular case, of which I can talk to with authority, we do not have any high work environments. I mean, if we have a 2-story home, it's still only 2 stories. We don't use heavy equipment per se, so that in itself is very safety driven. The power tools we use are handheld, battery-powered tools. There's not any danger in that regard. Common sense and obviously fundamental training. But I think in a prefabricated world, at the factory level, safety is a lot easier to control, as I explained. Construction sites always have an element of risk, and proper safety training and adherence to those standards is of paramount importance, and that starts from the foreman down, as we all know.
What would you say is the proportion of women in your activity sector?
The actual number, but I would estimate around 10, 15, maybe even 20%. You know, when you go to a trade school now, there's a lot more women involved in their trades, which is obviously fantastic. And we should be encouraging all genders to participate in the trade program. And as I explained before, I think the incentives can be given to the students themselves, obviously, but I think more incentives should be given to the actual final employer, the actual red-sealed trade person. I think that would be a much more effective method of spending money to entice trades to become more spoken about around a dinner table.
Madame Zerillo for 2.5 minutes.
I'm going to ask Witness Fassett and then Mr. Silvera. So I am, the Bank of Canada is really bothering me for a couple of years. And I know tomorrow we're going to have announcements on the interest rate. There's many discussions that the Bank of Canada went too far on the raising of their interest rates. What's really got me bothered is the mandate of the Bank of Canada, which is part of the government jurisdiction. I mean, the finance minister sits on the governance model for the Bank of Canada, and we're continually told that the Bank of Canada has one tool, and it's keeping inflation stable. That's it. And the Bank of Canada Act does not talk about people and the impact of people. It's to protect the state. It's to protect Canada as a state. So unfortunately, the governor of the Bank of Canada refused 2 invitations to this committee, didn't come, doesn't think that housing has anything to do with them. I would like to see some modernization. You mentioned, Witness Fassett, about the workforce is modernizing. They have a different thought process, a different culture. I really think the Bank of Canada needs to do the same. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what should the Bank of Canada be measuring in the modern economy, and how can it help to get homes built?
That's a loaded question.
Yes.
I can tell you that from a monetary perspective, the Bank of Canada's decisions likely have an impact on private investment longer term. There is uncertainty in the marketplace right now. I have a board member whose company has had 3 jobs delayed due to the uncertainty. In terms of its mandate, Mr. Chair, through you to the honourable member, to be honest with you, it's probably outside of my scope, I'll be honest. There are many other jurisdictions perhaps that can look at that question more carefully. You know, there's pros and cons to having the Bank of Canada go to expand its mandate, and it's out of my purview, Mr. Chair.
Silvera, do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, the same. It's out of my scope.
Okay, and Mr. Pascoe, do you have any comments to share on?
Well, I'll join that train, I think. But I mean, obviously, money is everything in this day and age. The Bank of Canada has been very influential on private investment over the last 5 or 6 years, obviously, as we know, and we're all anticipating tomorrow to be some, big news day. But
what would an announcement of a significant drop tomorrow do to the industry for house building?
Well, I think it gives certainly private clients, I'm not talking about general contractors, but also they're included as well, but just from a private client, if their interest rate drops down by 0.5%, 0.75%, whatever it might be, that is real money in the back pocket. That is money they can now invest in their home, their future, for themselves or their children. Obviously, for property developers, it's enormous. I mean, the millions a property developer has to put up front many years from completion before he gets that money back in home sales is extraordinary. And so Bank of Canada interest rates are fundamental in what's happening in the building industry, in my humble opinion.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. Excuse me now, Ms. Falk for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here today. Mr. Silvera, I'd just like to start with you. You had made a comment regarding a project that you're able to be a part of an hour outside of Calgary. That's not remote by any means. That might be rural, which is very much different than remote. I come from rural Saskatchewan, where it's a landlocked province. Everything has to come by truck, by train, or by air. And there are communities in my province, some First Nations communities in particular, that the only way you have access to them is by plane. That's the only way. There are no major runways, so your planes are very small in order to get things up there. There is even a point where you're going so far up north that you don't have paved roads. You're now, if you're driving on dirt roads, literal dirt roads. And so I guess my question, and this would be for any of you, are you able to provide services to remote communities, those ones that are fly-in? Are you able to take your materials, plop them on a plane, and send them?
The short answer is yes. The non-residential construction world has experience doing it.
Non-residential, so we're talking commercial?
Right.
Okay.
So they have our industry has a lot of experience in doing that already. If you look at the number of remote sites, and I said earlier, I referenced my son for a third time, he worked an hour north of Kapuskasing, and it was fly and drive. And they can produce local materials on site, but logistics is a major part, as you referenced, that it's critical. So regardless whether you're building homes and what you're doing, you need to plan in advance, do as much as you can fabrication in advance, and if you have to fly things in on smaller runways, to have a little bit of an aviation background, there are some aircraft that can land and take off in some shorter areas, but road access is always the preferred. If you look at the Ring of Fire project in the province of Ontario, the first thing they're doing is they're building $1 billion road to alleviate that very infrastructure need of having to fly things into remote areas and engage with the local First Nations community. So we do have experience doing it. We do it now. And we can build those multi-unit facilities that are required on site, but it really does boil down to logistics.
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so yeah, you were right. We got there by road, which, by the way, was a decent road. It was not a bad road. Yeah, thanks for the correction. Yeah, so our technology goes down to three main components, right? We have the machine, we have the robot, we have the materials, and we also have the structural engineering design, like the final product itself, right? When it comes to the machine, we have a machine that is very, very flexible that goes through a doorway, a regular doorway, right? So, and the weight is 2,500 kilograms. So that can go into a small plant for sure. But to have a solid response for you in terms of is it possible to build with this technology in a remote area? So it's going to depend on the material that we have available in that remote area. Because again, we want to be using as much as we can from local materials, meaning sand, meaning gravel.
So I just want to challenge you guys to not leave out the rural and remote places, right? Like, so when you're inventing and being the innovators that I believe a lot of business is, to not forget about those communities that are rural and sometimes far, far, far up north. I think that's very important. I just want to follow up quickly because I don't have a lot of time. We know that the carbon tax costs on everything. We know that. That's something that everybody knows, especially Canadians. So I'm wondering, how do the added transportation costs impact the interests of Canadians or business, because you had mentioned commercial, Mr. Facette, in taking up these projects? So is that a deterrent for people to invest in this?
It can be. When someone looks at investing in a construction project, they're going to look at all the input costs, and they'll make the determination whether it's worth it or not. And so to the extent that you're able to lower those input costs, increases the feasibility of the project getting done. It's as simple as that, and it just boils down to the math. So our short answer is yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Falk, we'll probably get back to that. We'll now go to Mr. Collins for 5 minutes.
Thanks,
Collins?
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the witnesses for your attendance here today. And I'll take us back to the study, which is housing and innovation and how the government can assist both public and private partners with incentivizing new supply and getting us the units that we need to get us out of this housing crisis. So, Mr. Pasco, I'll start with you. I've always found through my time representing my constituents at 2 levels of government that when all 3 levels of government work together, we find a greater success in whatever problem that we're trying to tackle. In this instance, it's housing. And we could certainly sit around the table today and call out municipalities and mayors across the country who we feel that maybe aren't doing their part. But that doesn't get us any further along the way in terms of getting us new supply and driving innovation in the housing sector. So our government's taken a bit of a different approach. We created the Housing Accelerator Fund that speaks, I think, to many of the issues that you raised in terms of, there can be delays in the municipal process. We don't control municipalities. They fall under the jurisdiction of the provincial governments and territorial governments, but we do play a role in the housing sector. And the Housing Accelerator Fund seeks to incentivize municipalities who change the way that they do business in terms of possibly creating a red carpet process to incentivize new supply. And I know that in your area of the country, the City of St. Catharines has created a grant process for accessory dwelling units. They're using federal resources to provide those grants to your customers. How do programs like that and those grants and the incentives assist in terms of driving not just customers through your facility or to your door, but how does it help in terms of drive innovation in your plant and in the industry?
Well, certainly the Housing Accelerator Fund, we've had a direct involvement in that, in the sense that St. Catharines was awarded some $24 million, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But to offer people that wanted to, and we're talking about homeowners here, that wanted to put an ADU in their backyard up to $80,000, which is tremendous. Absolutely fantastic. And since then, we're quite close to St. Catharines as well. We've had numerous inquiries, which we're very active right now in the building permit process for those actual ADUs. However, what I would say, if I had to criticize the fund, is although this is my personal knowledge, St. Catharines has $80,000 to give out until the pot is empty, which is fine. It has to empty sooner or later. It has to end. Whereas neighbouring municipalities, the Thorolds, the Pelhams, and so on, gets nothing. And so rather than being offered it, giving it to an individual municipality, I think a regional approach would possibly be a much more effective way. I mean, I can say that Thorold, which is quite near St. Catharines, has a much higher ADU uptake per head of population than St. Catharines, but they've received nothing. And so, although the Housing Accelerator Fund is excellent, obviously, I think a better understanding of how it should be distributed would certainly be more effective.
That's a great recommendation for the study. There'll be some question, of course, next year. Different governments have different priorities. There'll be some question as to whether programs like that should stick around. Can you provide recommendations in terms of how the federal government can further incentivize or expand upon, as you just referenced, the current programs that we have?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I keep coming back to this, the tradespeople. We can give out money left, right, and centre, to be perfectly honest. And here's all the money in the world. But if we've got no one to build them, that's when it stops. So, again, the incentivization for apprentices in the red seal trades or the employers of those apprentices, I think is something that really should be discussed at some level to at least acknowledge that it is problematic. It's not because people don't want to go into trades. It's because are the jobs there when they finish their training?
Mr. Silvera, I attended York University to watch what you have in terms of the program that you offer and some of the innovation that you're driving there on site. One of the questions that I would have is that, how do we bridge the gap between the innovation that you're driving and your process with the traditional home builders that have their own blueprint that's worked for many decades. Some of those processes haven't changed for almost 100 years. They're doing things today the same way they may have done decades ago. And one of the questions I have is, how do you introduce your innovation to the industry where some might feel a bit of discomfort in terms of adopting that as the new way of doing business in their realm, in their municipality, or in their part of the country?
Thanks for the question. Yeah, it is down to two components here, right? Training and research, right? In order to know better about the technology, you gotta invest in research. You gotta have a guided research plan in order to fill the gaps that we have. That we identify those gaps from the industry side of things, right? So on the industry, you're going to see exactly what are the gaps, right? So that's that covers research, and then those research data are going to inform the standards development, which is a very important component for the large scale adoption of of additive construction as a whole, right? And the second, probably the most important one, is going to be training, right? Because now you have the available workforce, and I already said the available workforce is hard to find. Everyone agrees on that. At least most of us here would agree on that. And the available workforce is already decreasing, and having those having those, training those tradespeople that are already into the industry, especially from the concrete industry, for example, it's going to be much more easier than training people outside of the industry. And also from the robotics industry as well, right? Auto industry uses a lot of robots already, so getting those people and bringing them to the construction, it is something that we also see as a possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Madame Gray. Yes, Ms. Gray, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. In the Canadian Roofers Contractors 2024-2027 strategic plan, it includes a goal to, quote, be the change by being proactive and leading. The study is looking at innovation in home building and how government red tape in municipalities or federal agencies like the CMHC is undermining it. So are there bureaucratic regulatory requirements that roofers encounter that are getting in the way of home building?
I don't know if there are necessarily federal ones that are getting in the way of building homes necessarily across the board. I will say that to the extent that federal policy can link what it does do to right down to the municipal level, to say, hey, we have this, we want to give it to you, however, we need to see something, might be helpful. We're already seeing that in current government policy of linking funding to outcomes. So that might be helpful. The other thing it can do is, as my colleague Daniel mentioned, that incentivizing employers to take on apprentices, because it is a major commitment for an employer to take on an apprentice. If there's something that the feds can do in that regard, that would be helpful. I think that the greatest impediment to growing one's business is that, in fact, we have the availability of the people. I mean, right now, even on the immigration side, I know immigration right now is getting a bit of a rough ride, but when it comes to roofing and building envelope construction, these are good paying jobs. They pay between $35 and $75 an hour. These are not low paying jobs at all. So making sure that roofing and building envelopes from a federal government immigration policy is carved out from any kind of perception that it's low wage would be helpful.
Okay. My next question is, we've heard other testimony that the capital gains tax increase is causing investment, in particular in innovation, to leave Canada. And in a press conference in June, the finance minister said their Liberal capital gains tax hike is going to increase more homes being built in Canada. So my question is, do you think the capital gains tax hike will increase innovation and home building? And first to Mr. Pascoe.
Well, I think I said it earlier, but any tax or levy or charge put upon any sort of home building entity is a negative result. I'm not an expert on tax law or what you just mentioned, sorry. But anything that is prohibitive towards home building is not a good thing. And I think raising taxes or charges or levies is obviously a negative.
Thank you. Mr. Fassett?
Somebody must have been in my board meeting last week because our board talked about this last week. And the short answer to your question is no. It's having an effect that is, I don't think, was intended at all.
Mr. Silviar?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. The next question I have is, we've heard other testimony that Canadian home builders are now moving to the U.S. and actually building the same amount of homes either in Canada or in the U.S. due to red tape, bureaucracy, increasing taxes and costs in Canada. And so my question is, have you heard about this, and why would building in the U.S., for example, be more favorable than in Canada? Mr. Pascoe, do you have any comments?
I personally haven't heard that story, to be perfectly honest. I can only speculate as to why they would do that otherwise.
Mr. Fassett?
I've heard it directly, including my son, who said, if I get a job offer in the U.S., Dad, I'm probably not coming back.
Wow.
It's very real. A lot of it has to do with the ability to afford to buy a home themselves. And then there's, from a personal perspective, there's opportunities down in the United States, and the taxes that they have to pay here versus there is very real. So yeah, I've heard it directly, and I can tell you from firsthand information, they are going.
Mr. Silviera?
Yeah, within our industry, of course, I mentioned in the beginning here that I'm part of various committees that we are developing standards and doing research across the border. So there is a lot more development on the other side of the border. I cannot precise exactly why, but most of the cases, they have more ability to, for example, when it comes to building permit applications, so they have abilities to use innovation in a faster way without going over long permit process because they are using something that is not still regulated and that is needed for the technology to develop,
So
right?
less red tape and bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or another short question? Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gray. Mr. Long? Yeah,
Just for clarification, this was 5 minutes, correct? Yes, okay.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
But because the other one went over a little.
Okay.
No, you're correct, Ms. Gray. Mr. Long for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you to our witnesses. The New Brunswick Roofers Contractors Association is in my riding of St. John Rothsay, and Ronnie Hutton, I assume, Mr. Fassett, you know Ronnie. Ronnie's a good friend of mine, and I got to go there a few years back, probably 3 years now, and tour the facility on the Golden Mile with Ronnie, and I was blown away by what I saw, the training. To your point, the fact that, roofers can be red sealed. He was telling me that roofers can make, over $100,000 now, and I was just like, you're kidding me. So I was totally impressed with it. In a previous life, when I was a student, I worked at a home renovation place, kind of like the past Home Depot, and I sold roofing. But obviously in those days, roofing was basically 3-in-1 shingles and tar paper roofing. I'm dating myself. So, now, you progress and you still see obviously asphalt roofing, you see metal roofing, you see rubberized roofing or rubber roofing. I guess my question to you is, can you just comment, I know I've seen green roof initiatives, cool roof initiatives, and obviously green roof initiatives, I think they were, not spearheaded, but, in the province of Ontario, they were about, controlling rainwater runoff. Cool roofs obviously would help reduce carbon because the houses wouldn't have to work so hard to cool down. Can you just give us kind of your comments on kind of the leading innovative technology you're seeing, and just comment on green roof and cool roof?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. I'm glad to hear that you visited the New Brunswick facility.
Yeah.
The trainer there, his name is Edgar. He is one of the most sought-after, he is the sought-after trainer for Red Seal in the province of New Brunswick. The man's outstanding. I met him myself. He's an absolutely super, super person. When it comes to different roofing systems, being or cool roofs or blue roofs is what it's also referred to as, and green roof systems, There is a company in Toronto called Live Roofing that does a lot of that kind of work. We're seeing more and more of it on commercial roofing. On residential, you're getting the solar panels and whatnot that get done. So there is that kind of work that's out there, and the whole idea is that it's about energy efficiency and about dealing with the water when it comes to. Go ahead.
So is the province of Ontario incentivizing builders to use green roofs and cool roofs? Like, is it
I
proper?
honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I think what it is we're seeing we spoke this morning about, now the afternoon, I guess, the building code. There is a national effort to harmonize the national building code. That's hopefully be done by 2030. We'll see if that actually happens.
Okay.
But right now, the provinces adopt the building code and has no enforceability at the national level from the National Research Council. What we are seeing being put into the building code is we're seeing more and more of this kind of thing put into the building code going forward.
Okay.
So we are seeing those kind of incentives. We're also seeing private owners who want to make use of new technologies to reduce their energy costs and to use the runoff, the rain runoff, to get it away from the roofs. Because I can tell you,
Fascinating.
The rain that took place in the course of the weekend, my son was up to a foot of water on a roof this weekend. He got awfully wet. He was dealing with it in a very real way. So I can attest to that for sure. So there are some incentives, but it's really privately driven. That's out there. So yes, green roofs is there. It's viable. The cool roofs is around, but I don't know that we're seeing the cool roofs necessarily to extent that maybe some people would like yet.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share what I have left with MP Fragaskatos. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chair, it's always a learning opportunity to hear what Wayne Long has done in his life. Didn't even owned a hockey team, a fishery, who knows, the list continues, roofing now. But in any case, thank you very much to the witnesses for being here. Mr. Silvera, I'll begin with you. I'm interested in the international context and what you know about what's happening abroad with respect to the issues that we've touched on here today. Are there other countries that have put in place, whether it's incentives or other policies, to really propel this kind of building forward?
Yeah, specifically about this technology for...
Gres. No, pas Gres.
Specifically about this technology, when it comes to, for example, standard developments, right? So, in this, I can say a little bit about the United States because I'm part of some of the committees there, right? So NIST, National Institute for Standards and Technology, they put together a committee that they are putting together academia, researchers, industry, all the players around this industry to develop these standards because you have multiple level of standards. For example, when it comes to testing, even here in Canada, we still use ASTMs, the American Society Testing Materials, right? And over there, of course, they use ASTMs. When it comes to design guidelines, for example, structural design, you're going to be using CSAs, right? So CSA for the CSA for concrete, the CSA for steel, and all of that, right? So on the States, they started to develop they created this group and they identified the gaps that needed to be filled. And they have, of course, resource being put towards research that is informing that the standard developments, starting from ASTMs and moving up for ACI, ICC, and all of those.
Thank you very much.
Chabot pour 3 minutes.
Ms. Chabot, 3 minutes. I would like to continue with my previous questions, Mr. Silveira. When we talk about the standards in this sector, which I'm not familiar with, but I imagine that as the industry develops, the standards tend to change regularly or more often for certain products. And maybe in 15 years, the standard will be changed. So when it comes to innovation, how do you ensure, I mean, what you're doing is very innovative. So you want to see that the R&D is going to support what you're going to do and the best standard applies. So what do you do to make sure that the standards are constantly updated? Thank you.
Yeah, so usually those standards committees, they are continuous, right? So they start before the publication of the first version of the standards, and they are going to be in place until that standards is still enforceable, kind of thing. So, and then once we find that another version of the standard is needed, we come up with a new publication. So that goes on usually on the 3 years basis or maybe 5 years, depending on the type of technology. For example, like reinforced concrete structures that has been around for a little while. So that standard is not updated that often because there's not, I wouldn't say there's not much progress, but the progress is not as much as in new industries like additive construction, for example. So, yeah, so the process would be you do your research findings are going to inform the first version of the standard, and then you keep updating that based on the current on an ongoing research basis. I hope that answers.
Is there a process in Canada? Is it satisfactory? Should it be improved on? When it comes to standards, is the sector consulted on this type of issue?
For example, right now, we don't have any committee being undertaken here in Canada, for example, CSA level or NBCC or OBC, right? So a short answer, yes, no.
Well, if you have any recommendations to make along these lines, we would be interested in hearing them. When it comes to R&D, would you say we do enough? I mean, to be consistent, if we want to address the challenges of climate change, the Government of Canada should also innovate in terms of, say, residential construction. I mean, there are environmental concerns. So do you find that, for instance, a tendering process is really responding to the needs of your industry? Mr. Facette?
Yeah, so exactly. In terms of R&D effort, yeah, we have a large R&D effort in place. Problem is those research, they are being conducted independently. So meaning that every single researcher is going to have a different approach or is going to be looking into a different problem, right? And sometimes we are missing some gaps. Some of the gaps are not being covered. Some of the gaps are being covered twice or 3 times. So I think what we are missing for the rapidly development of this technology, for example, what we are missing here is a unified research initiative. For example, the same, like I responded to the other member, that NIST, for example, they put together in the States this committee that they are using this committee to identify the gaps, and based on those gaps, they are creating those research efforts in order to solve a real problem.
Merci, Madame Chabot. Merci. Madame Zarrillo for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to start by saying today I was reminded of something you're saying about your son potentially going down to the States. It reminded me when I lived in Texas that when my child went into kindergarten, she didn't go to playdates alone. I always went with her. But when she went to grade 1, she went on playdates alone. And I was reminded almost on her 3rd playdate that most people have a gun in their home. And they're not necessarily locked up all the time. And I had to start thinking about, if I send my daughter to a play date, does that family lock their guns? And I used to think about that when I went to work, too. As a Canadian, never even crossed my mind that I'm going to the office every day. And a disproportionate amount of folks have a gun either in their purse or on their person. So when I decided to have another child, I came back to Canada because it's just too expensive. We couldn't even have a child. So there's just so many other choices that come along with living in the United States. But I also hear a lot about research, and that the Canadian government does not invest in research. We know that for the PhDs, they haven't been investing. We talk about the productivity in Canada, and we know that Canadian companies skim all of their profits, and they don't reinvest in the same level in research and development, in capital investments. American companies that come up here, they want to make sure that their Canadian component is not making money, so they don't need to pay taxes. So I want to go back to this federal, what can we do federally? What can we do federally on research and development to get research done here, to become centers of excellence on innovation? What can be done?
I think there's a lot to be done, right? So specifically right now, one of the problems that we're running right now, for example, in engineering, to find a graduate student locally, it's very difficult because the wage that we pay as a PhD student is not attractive at all, right? So most of them are coming overseas. I'm an example of that, right? So and right now with the immigration change, this is making our life as a company that sponsors research throughout the universities, throughout NSERC grants, for example, we're finding hard time in order to get those students here because you don't have them available in the country, and bringing them overseas is kind of challenge right now.
So what do we need to do? What do we need to do as a federal government? What does the federal government need to do?
I think like the wages need to be revealed. That's for sure, because it's not competitive at all, especially in the engineering. Because you're going to have access as a engineer, you're going to have access to better wages as opposed to go over a PhD program, which is a 4-year program after you already accomplish your master's. So you're already like at least 26, 27 years old, and you need, in order to get your PhD, you need to go over those low wage kind of thing, right? That's one thing. On the research side of things, I think there is for us as a company, we are lacking having access to larger grants that is going to enable us to develop those. Perform those research programs in order to use those data for the industry, not just for us as a company, but also to inform the community as a whole by using those data, those results, in order to inform the standards that is going to look after safety and the quality of the products that we deliver to everyone.
Thank you, Madame Zarilla. A little direction from the committee. We got about 25 minutes on the clock. So give me some direction. Does the committee want to continue? We're going to go with Mr. Aitchison. So then if it is, I'll follow the same slot. If anybody doesn't want to participate, they can pass their time to somebody else. So keep that in mind. We'll begin.
Are we agreeing that we get one slot each? One more round? Is that fair?
Is that what you want?
Good.
Okay, done. Mr. Aitchison, 6 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And again, thanks to everyone for being here. And we've heard a lot of interesting stuff. I do want to hone in on the approvals process, not so much at the municipal level, but at the federal level, and some of the innovations that are occurring. Kevin Lee, I'm sure you're all familiar with Kevin Lee, the CEO of the Canadian Home Builders Association. When he was here, he said, "We need the provinces, with the support of the federal government, to step in and create harmonization at the municipal level. We also need a national code interpretation center that is binding so that code solutions that are proven in one town aren't rejected in the next town over. We also need a less expensive and more nimble Canadian Construction Materials Center that can help new technologies become acceptable code solutions more quickly." So I hammer away at municipalities all the time about the development approvals process, the outrageous costs and charges. This government loves to pat themselves on the back for their Housing Accelerator Fund that makes no difference in terms of what cities do with their development charges. They keep increasing them, making it more expensive, therefore slowing things down. But at the federal level, I wonder if you can speak to what a federal government that truly gets it, is seized of the matter, could do to bring parties together to say, number one, the National Building Code takes no consideration of affordability into it. The way we approve new technologies, the way we review them, is painfully slow. As we know, it can be interpreted differently from one town to the next, never mind one province to the next. We don't have lots of time, but I'd like each of you to speak to, imagine you could wave a magic wand and you're running the show. What would you do at the federal level to knock heads together and get this country on the same direction with real action? Starting with you, Daniel.
Well, making the municipalities. I mean, we need to work that. The federal government can do so much, but I think encouraging, be it financial or otherwise, financial normally moves things. Having time limits put on the time it takes from a building permit being submitted, to being approved. I think that is the easiest thing to start. Start there. Now, if they've got different rules and regulations in one municipality to the other, provincial or otherwise, if they're following the Ontario Building Code or the Manitoba one or the national one, so be it. But put a time limit. What is that? It doesn't matter what it is, but if you can actually make that time limit a real thing, then people can work with that. They can budget for that.
That'd be your number one thing?
I would say
Get
yes,
some real hard
because you would
timelines.
know what to expect. You can budget production, you can budget labor, you can budget everything. Because as soon as that building permit's approved, it's go time.
Right. So force some timelines into the process that are tangible, reliable, and
in my opinion,
verified.
start there.
Okay, that's great. Jim, what would you do?
Mr. Chair, the question was about what the federal government can do. It's about leadership. I think at the end of the day, I don't see any cabinet minister focused on construction. Period. End of story. If we had a cabinet minister, I don't want more bureaucracy, don't get me wrong, but if we had someone focused on construction that could bring the parties together in a room and work towards solutions long term, I don't have all the steps worked out, but if there was someone responsible at the federal level for moving construction along and have different mandates and whatnot, I think that would be leadership.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's a good answer. I like that one. Marco.
Yeah, so on the innovation side of things, right? So, for example, I'm going to start with what we have in place right now. For example, when you don't have published standards, available standards for your technology, you can apply for CCMC, for example, within NRC, right? The CCMC process is indeed a long process. So you're trying to cover something that is not covered by the National Building Code or the Ontario Building Code, with something that is still a long process. So the first phase is going to take at least 18 months, and then with these 18 months, they're going to say to you what tests you need to do. So 18 months to tell you what you need to test. After that, you're going to be partnering with universities and get those tests done, and those are going to take at least 2 more years, maybe 3. And then you have the results to go back and apply for that certification. I don't think this is exactly something that is going to bridge the gap on technology that we don't have covered in the National Building Code, right? So having a process similar to CCMC, but in a faster manner would be my number one.
Okay, thank you. I have time to.
You've got 40 seconds.
Okay, thank you all for that. That was amazing. I'm going to take the remaining seconds I have to move a motion, if I could, Mr. Speaker. It's on notice. The motion reads that with respect to the article published by the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation and Mr. Alad Ab Ayerwarth on October 3rd, 2024, titled, "In 2023, higher rates resulted in 30,000 fewer housing starts," the committee hold one meeting for 2 hours with the following witness from the CMHC. Alad Ab Ayerwarth, Deputy Chief Economist, CMHC.
The clerk has advised me it has the 48-hour notice. So Mr. Aitchison has moved it. Discussion? Madame Chabot?
Okay, yes.
Well, I was going to challenge you about the 48-hour prior notice, but I think you're right, actually. What date was that tabled, just so that I can look it up?
October the 4th. We are now on October the 22nd. So the motion, discussion, Mr. Fragas-Catos?
Yeah, this is the, so if I remember, we already passed the one calling for the CEO to come, right? This is the one for the deputy economist? Yeah, okay, sure.
Seeing no further Madame Zarrillo, on the motion of Mr. Aitchison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to make an amendment to the motion. I'm fine with the motion, but I'd like to make an amendment that we also ask the Governor of the Bank of Canada to appear. We know that the reason that CMHC is so important to the work that is involved in housing is because regular financing can be very difficult to afford. So I would like to make a motion, or I'd like to amend to ask that we also invite the Governor of the Bank of Canada to come in that hour, or that 2 hours. I guess, is it 2 hours? To that meeting.
Motion was...
Yeah, to that meeting. Thank you.
we have an amendment now. Mr. Aitchison, on the amendment.
I guess just a question on the amendment. I suspect it's entirely likely that the gentleman from the CMHC is probably more inclined to come here than the Governor of the Bank of Canada. If the Governor of the Bank of Canada declines, but the fellow from the CMHC says he can come, are we still having a meeting, or is this going to be held up by this amendment that we have to have both?
Any witness can be attached. Any request can be attached to a motion. It's left to the witness to be called. Just for clarification, the last time we did this, the Governor of Bank of Canada said he attends the Finance Committee meeting and can discuss housing issues there, which he has. That's a committee that he appears before.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that it doesn't eliminate the meeting altogether if he doesn't show up.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No. So we have. I have to deal with the amendment of Madame Chabot. Sorry, Zarrillo. Do you have a question? Do you have a comment on the amendment, Mr.
Just quickly, we've been down this path before where we know that the Governor of the Bank of Canada goes to the Finance Committee. Ms. Zarrillo is interested in what he has to say. That's very valid. She can, with respect, go to the Finance Committee meetings and listen to the Governor of the Bank of Canada. He appears there many times a year. I am interested in hearing from the Deputy Economist as well. I think we have a straightforward motion on the table. I'm not sure where the rationale for the amendment is coming from, considering, as you just said, Mr. Chair, we've been down this path before.
Thank you, Mr. Fragas-Catos. As we have, Ms. Zarrillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we have the Bank of Canada Governor has denied twice to come to this committee. And, you know, I was elected by the people of Port Moody Coquitlam, who are very concerned about the interest rates, their mortgages, housing, the ability to be able to put carriage houses on their properties. They can't afford to carry that right now. And I actually find it quite insulting that I'm supposed to go to the finance table because this table doesn't warrant the presence of the Governor of the Bank of Canada. I find that insulting, not to me, but to my residents of Port Moody Coquitlam, that the Liberal government, the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Housing is saying to the residents of Port Moody Coquitlam, they can get lost, that he doesn't care what they're going through in regards to housing and the prices of their mortgage, that if they want to know what the Bank of Canada governor has to say, they can go to the Finance Committee. And I'm going to say that the reason that women don't come to this table, why women aren't sitting at municipal tables while there's hardly any mayors that are women, is because of input like Mr. Fragiscatos just put to this table, which is finance is more important than social issues, that's more important than persons with disabilities, that's more important than family, that's more important than people being able to carry their mortgage. And I see Mr. Fragiscato is talking over me right now because he doesn't like to have a light shone on the fact that the governor of the Bank of Canada is equally as important to this committee as they are to the Finance Committee, and that social issues and issues that are disproportionately affecting women, that matter to women and diverse genders in this country, are equally as important as finance ones. So I'm only making these comments because I am here for a short time. And it is important, that a woman's voice is heard. And I find it misogynistic of Mr. Fragiscatos to continue to, one, protect not just the governor of the Bank of Canada, but all of those corporate landlords that I have repeatedly asked to come here. And Mr. Fragiscatos, when I said I wanted to summon some of those people, you said that's nuclear. Because we know that gentlemen's agreements after gentlemen's agreements, I have the floor, I think, Mr. Chair.
Chair, Madame Zerillo, I'm the chair.
And
please,
I'm allowed to. I'm allowed to.
Yes, keep your comments to the amendment that you made.
This is so important.
To the
You said that
amendment
this would be
made,
nuclear.
Madame
This would be
Zerillo.
nuclear because gentlemen's agreements protect gentlemen. And I feel very strongly, Mr. Fragiscatos, as the Parliamentary Secretary for Housing, that you are gentlemen agreement protecting both these corporate landlords and the Governor of the Bank of Canada. Canadians want to hear from them. They want to hear from them, and I don't understand why you continue to block it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to call a recorded vote on the amendment of Madame Zerillo. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Fragiscatos?
No.
Mr. Long? No. Mr. Collins? No. Mr. Coteau? No. Mr. Van Bynen? No. Mrs. Gray?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, what was the quote?
Ms. Gray.
Okay.
We're voting on the amendment of Madame Zerillo.
The amendment. Okay, yes.
Mrs. Falk? Yes. Mr. Seaback? Yes. Mr. Aitchison? I guess so, yes. Madame Chabot?
No.
Ms. Zerillo?
The amendment is defeated. We'll now go to the vote on the main motion of Mr. Aitchison.
Mr. Fragiscatos?
Yes.
Mr. Long? Yes. Mr. Collins? Yes. Mr. Coteau? Sure. Mr. Van Bynen? Yes. Mrs. Gray? Yes. Mrs. Falk? Yes. Mr. Seaback? Oui. Mr. Aitchison? Yes. Madame Chabot?
Yes.
Ms. Zerillo?
Oh, yes. Madame. It was carried unanimously. The motion, we will now move to Mr. Van Bynen for 6 minutes, and that will conclude us. Okay. Mr. Van Bynen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to share my time with Mr. Coteau. I just wanted to follow up on I know that we're talking about the construction of units, but I keep hearing that getting to the stage of construction is where the big logjam is. Has the construction industry undertaken any initiatives with either the federal, provincial, or municipal levels of government to try to get through that logjam? Now, when we were having a study on the accelerator funding, where we required improvements in the approval processes. We had mayors sitting here as witnesses saying the system is as efficient as it can get. And to this very day, 15 years ago, I started as mayor, and the very first building project that was proposed in the neighborhood is finally under construction. How do we get through that logjam? Has the industry done anything to try to advance their concerns? I'll start from right to left, Mr. Pascoe, and then Mr. Facette.
Well, I can't talk to the industry as a whole in regards to any sort of bodies representing the industry. I think any change, it needs leadership. Be that, I mean, as my colleague Jim mentioned, you know, be it federal, be it provincial, be it municipal level, it needs leadership. Someone who actually wants to change it, someone who actually has the passion to change it, not the reason to change it. He should be passionate about wanting to change. Anything that someone wants to do normally ends up getting done. If you've been told to do it, that's not necessarily the result you'll have.
Okay, I'm keen about the industry. And Mr. Facette, do you have any industry experience?
Yeah, I would say, in short, yes. The construction industry, broadly speaking, be they non-residential or residential, has done a great deal of advocacy work at all levels of government to speed up the process, to eliminate the approval process, to make it more efficient, get rid of the paper burden, if you will, and whatnot. That goes on. The reality is, though, that the approval process, depending where you are, there are some people that just don't want things to get built. Period, end of story. And they see things getting built as a negative, not as a positive. Whether it's commercial facilities or residential. You know, there is this NIMBY theory of not in my backyard is still around. And it doesn't help. So the industry has done continues to do a great deal of advocacy work at all levels of government to, you know, make the approvals process far much easier. Having said that, it's not getting less expensive. The approval process, the permits that are needed, the money that's required, the per unit costs, whether it's a multi-unit facility or a single dwelling, are just keep going up and up and up and up and up. And you have the levels of government that are depending on those fees to do what they do. And they see it as a cash cow, as opposed to delaying the immediate cash they get from the developer and then getting it later on in having the housing built or the commercial establishments built and getting the tax base there. They want the fees up front. So it's yes, the industry's done a lot of work and will continue to do so. What will get done the next 10 years remains to be seen.
Thank you. And I did mention I'm splitting my time with Mr. Coteau.
Thank you. Mr. Facette, you spoke a bit about this minister, the creation of this Minister of Construction. We all know the federal government's responsible for funding, it's responsible for strategy, it's responsible for policy. We know the provincial governments are responsible for regulation and administration, and the municipal governments are responsible for the implementation. The federal government today is giving more money than any other government to directly to municipalities and provinces to build. We've seen, GST removed from purpose-built housing. We've seen a lot of different incentives put in place. Are you saying on behalf of the contractors, roofing contractors that you represent across this great country, that you think there should be a minister put in place to actually be responsible for construction? And if so, what would this person do?
They say in leadership it's about vision first and the details follow. The vision is that we are also at CRC part of the National Trade Contractor Council of Canada. And one of the things that we in that group have put forward is a minister responsible for construction in some way. The vision, and it's just that's a vision, where someone, a person, is actually bringing the industry together and all levels of government together to solve these kind of problems and identify options going forward. I don't have all the answers.
What's the housing minister? Like, what's the job of the housing minister from your perspective?
Well, I'm in non-residential, so I'll defer that to someone else. I think that the important thing is to have some kind of vision.
So non-residential.
Yeah, technically it's called industrial, commercial, institutional, ICI sector.
Right.
But we just, to use layman terms, non-residential is probably the best term to use.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coteau. Thank you to the witnesses. That will conclude. We've only got a minute, and I need direction from the committee on one item. So again, thank you, Mr. Silvera, Mr. Fassett, and Mr. Pasco for your extensive testimony today and questioning to the committee members. So you can leave at will, but one item before we conclude. I need direction in the eventuality that ministers are not available to appear on October the 31st and or November the 5th. Members were asked to submit the names and contact information. Madame Shabat? Members were asked to submit the names and contact information of at least 2 witnesses for the study on workers in the seasonal economy and the employment insurance program. What deadline does the committee wish to set for the rest of the witness list for this study? Because I have to be able to schedule timing. I'm suggesting Friday, October the 25th. I'm suggesting Friday, October the 25th as the deadline for witnesses for the study, Madame Shabat, your study on seasonal industries and employment insurance. Do we have agreement on that? Oui, Madame?
Monsieur le Président, je vous
Chair, I really do apologize because of the lag with interpretation. I would like to better understand. Are you talking about briefs? Because we already were asked for a list of witnesses.
Witness list.
J'entends pas.
I was not getting any interpretation when you were speaking. Could you please repeat? Could you please explain, Chair?
Oui, donc le président a
The Chair has asked that by day end, each party submit 2 witness names. Subsequently, the Chair asked whether you agree that for the rest of the witness be this Friday, October 25th. I thought I heard November. That's what why I misunderstood. Sorry. Very well. Is that right then, Ms. Shabat?
Nothing else on the agenda. Is it the will of the committee to adjourn until Thursday? Adjourn. He ate all